OLLI, we're so glad to have you here where you belong. You're looking swell, OLLI, we can tell. OLLI, you're still growing, you are going strong. We know we're all learning and we're all gaining something new and something old from way back when. So take a trip, fellas, sign up for a new class, ladies.
Hello, my name is Megan Wilden. I'm the Executive Director of OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College. And this is our television program, Hello OLLI, where we interview OLLI instructors, volunteers, speakers, and other folks who help us create amazing educational, social, and volunteer programs designed especially by and for people 50 years old and better, but open to everyone. And this is an intergenerational program. Our production crew is from Miss Hall School right here in Pittsfield, and they are a delight to work with, and we're very grateful to them for their support. So I'm very excited to have with us today Bob James. Bob is a OLLI member, and this is his first class that he'll be teaching. And the class is called Freight. Excuse me, Freight is Great, the supply chains that deliver the goods to you. And he has a long background in this area. He has a law degree from Boston College. He served as a senior policy and planning aide for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, for the state of New Jersey, and is past president of the New York Transportation Research Forum. And welcome, Bob. It's great to have you here.
Well, it is great to be here, and it's great to actually do an OLLI program. I've participated in many of the OLLI's program, and it's just a wonderful smorgasbord for the brain.
Absolutely.
You know, I've taken courses ranging from you know, history and politics of the Ukraine to folk dancing to a whole variety of things, constitutional law, and it's there. And poetry I especially enjoyed. Oh. And it's nice to be exposed to these different areas and to be able to feel the interest of very dedicated instructors. So I have tremendous examples to follow, and I certainly hope that I'll be able to deliver to this group.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm sure you will. You bring so much experience on this, and I heard you speak at our open house, and then just now, before the show started, and you have really such a big picture view of freight and supply chains and trade, as well as, you know, detailed knowledge. So tell us some of the things you'll be talking about in your class.
Well, I might as well begin where we were having in our conversation.
Sure.
It's interesting to think about freight and transportation itself as a liberal art. Mm-hmm. It actually is it's a derived demand, and the demand is for knowledge, for wealth, for culture, for commerce. And through transportation, people have connected themselves with the world and a world beyond their immediate barriers. And freight transportation, the system that delivers us our stuff, is a very important part of our lives and in many ways enriches us. But it is a very diverse system. It is full of challenges that range from safety to the environment. But I hope people will be able to see, you know, all the effort that goes behind the system, and that collecting and delivering your stuff is a very complex and interesting process.
Absolutely. And what you were saying earlier was it's really the basis for civilization and culture. Is that right?
That's true. We evolved as a society when through a whole process that involved movement from hunters and gatherers to agriculture, to people beginning to form towns and villages, and they realized that there was a bigger world out there, and a started to use the paths that were available to them. You know, first they put one foot in front of another, then they dug out barks and had canoes. People who lived by the sea started to sail to other points, and they realized that they had something to trade, something that could enrich them or be absolutely important to sustaining their lives. And that's what the transportation system did and is doing, and it really brings the basic things to our lives right to our doorstep. Many of us now are aware of e-commerce and what a revolution that has been. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of surprising that I ordered a set of speakers in New York one day and it was at my doorstep the next.
Yeah.
And I think people will find some interest in looking into a system that really delivers this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I think personally, I love finding out how things happen behind the scenes. And when you first proposed this class, forgive me, but I first thought of Richard Scarry, the Richard Scarry books, What Do People Do All Day, which are children's books, but they really give you a feeling for what people do and how things actually work in our day-to-day lives. And I think that this is really going to kind of draw the veil on a lot of things that people don't think about unless they're, you know, personally involved in the business like you have been for so many years. So I think it's going to be fascinating. And what do you think will be the most surprising thing to the students in your class that you'll be talking about?
Well, I think the most surprising thing is the tremendous thought that goes behind the network of the transportation systems, and how some companies really owe a great deal of their success and maybe even the predominance of their success of being good transportation managers. I think when we think about e-commerce now, for example, we have the Amazon example. And one way Amazon has been able to expand its market has been its effective use or exploitation of transportation to achieve its ends. Walmart is another company that when they were starting out, they were called a retailer that was was actually a transportation company under the guise of being a retailer. Oh. And these companies have really got their act together. They've added squeezed out costs and efficiencies that enable them to do their major business, that of selling goods, all the more better.
So they gather things from around the world, and then it goes through their system, so then it goes out to thousands of stores.
Transportation is really a worldwide business,
Mm-hmm.
and we forget all the important parts. 90% of world trade takes place through ocean carriage, through ships on the sea, and through our port systems, and through the truckers and the railroads that deliver the goods to the warehouses and then to your doorstep. And that's where I spent a lot of my career, is working in the port industry. Oops. So it's I'm going to enjoy explaining to people how the ocean commerce system works and comparing it to air freight and the collaborative and competitive roles that trucking and railroads play in this picture.
Sure, and there must be a lot of change. It feels like there's a lot of changes happening in this whole world of supply chains and transportation. I mean, they're talking about, I think, about trucks possibly being remotely controlled or autonomous at some point.
I think that's a very, very interesting point, Megan, because I think people are going to be surprised that the first autonomous vehicles they're going to see are going to be trucks rather than cars. Mm-hmm. Because there's a crisis in the trucking industry about having the number of drivers they need to deliver the goods. And the only way that crisis can be met in the long run would be to get more efficiency out of the equipment. And the best way to get the efficiency out of the equipment will be a certain level of automation. I think what we will see first, for example, is trucks, heaven help us. This is certainly more reasonable in the western states than it is here, driving in platoons, where you have one driver who's controlling a series of trucks in the process of delivering the goods. But right now, there's a big revolution occurring due to computerization and the management of information. Because the challenge for all transportation systems over time has been, where is the freight? For example,
tracking it.
In the Gulf War, for example, the military did an excellent job of logistics of getting their equipment into containers and sending it overseas. But when it got there, nobody knew where it was or what stuff was in what box. So,
Wow.
so now that's the big challenge. It's to make it easier to track the goods, to make the financial transactions, which are a very important element of freight, stay in order, so that the goods can come when you expect it, and they can be delivered efficiently at the price agreed to.
So that's interesting. So when you think about government, then the military is probably the largest entity that participates in this kind of supply chain. I mean, a lot of what government produces is information and policy and things and people. But as far as goods, the military must be the place where the most goods are transported.
Well, an important subset of transportation now is the field of logistics. And logistics really came out of the military, which was a process of, delivering the goods from here to there when needed, for the condition, for military purposes. And so that whole system focusing on the transportation elements of how things get from their source to their ultimate customer is a military interest, and many of the transportation managers, come out of the military because of the experiences they had at various levels within the transportation system. So it's a very important subcomponent.
Sure.
When the interstate highway system was built, and which makes the modern trucking industry possible and successful, it was done on the basis of a military argument that we needed to be able to respond and move our military throughout the country as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Right, that's right. So for the military, moving people is also one of the
a very
quote
important
unquote goods, or one of the part of the supply chain, so to speak.
Well, I've had a transportation career where I've been involved in issues both moving people and goods, and it really is stuff and people have a lot in common in the ways that they have to move. So I find elements more in common with the system than things that are different.
And airlines. And
exactly.
Amtrak.
Right. All the stuff
they
they operate on tracks. They fly through airports and terminals. They're very similar concepts involved. But freight itself is unique. One of the reasons why you need a good information system is freight don't speak. Even though today, with the modern barcode systems and things like that, you can scan a piece of freight and it'll come back to you and give you all the information as the contents that are inside and who the vendors are and who are going to receive the materials.
So one of the things that are most visible to the average consumer in this arena is fruit and vegetables and flowers, and you pick up a banana and it's from South America, and you think, how did a banana get from South America without being bruised and not being overripe? So how do those fresh vegetables and fruit and flowers and stuff, how do they travel halfway across the world and are still affordable to buy? Relatively speaking.
Well, it's first of all, it's a system that's very carefully managed. The total management of what comes to you is called supply side management. So the grower decides, when he's going to plant his crop tied to the demand.
Right.
He will figure out the proper level of
Valentine's Day, and then you back
right,
up.
exactly, for the flowers example, and most of our flowers come from South America.
Yeah.
My daughter was in the
crazy.
Peace Corps, and I had the pleasure to go to Ecuador, and Ecuador is a source of major flowers for this country.
Wow.
But a lot of this stuff is due to refrigerated freight. This will expand your vocabulary because because the term for
Sure.
a refrigerated container is a reefer.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so you put your flowers into a reefer, and flowers are interesting because they're an air cargo business because they need freshness.
Right.
And the big flower center, distribution center in the country is Miami. So these flowers come in from the rest of the world to Miami, and then they're kept in these refrigerated warehouses, sorted out. And if they're a local delivery, they move by truck. If they got to move to other parts of the country, they'll move by air. And then finally they'll come into say a floral warehouse or a store, and then the truck will take it there, and you'll bring it home, and you'll say, "I didn't
Hi,
forget
honey."
your anniversary."
That's amazing. So do they have, are there planes that are designed especially to carry flowers? Like that's all they do?
I'm not sure of the exact technology, but aircraft are particularly tricky because they need their own specialized containers to move freight, and they're called igloos. So there's probably this time the temperature is controlled on the inside rather than the outside in the igloo, and that's delivered in that specific container. Then they come in and they're sorted into the more standard ways of transportation delivery.
Wow. So if you're just joining us, this is Hello OLLI. My name is Megan Wilden. I'm the director of OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College, and I'm very happy to be talking with Bob James today. He is both an OLLI member and an OLLI instructor, and he is teaching a fascinating class called Freight is Great, the supply chains that deliver the goods to you. The class starts Friday, January 17th at 10 a.m. at Berkshire Community College. It is open to all. OLLI is designed especially by and for people 50 years old and better, but anyone can take an OLLI class and everybody is welcome. And Bob has an amazing background in policy, planning, and organization of freight. He's worked for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which must be like one of the biggest or the biggest in the world, as well as the state of New Jersey and other fascinating places. Is it Port Authority must be one of the biggest
Well,
in the
actually,
world?
for a while, and it still may be true, the Port Authority was the largest public sector supplier of engineers. Because engineering is very important, because the people who know the Port Authority, they probably think toll collection is very important, but actually somebody's got to build the infrastructure that's
Sure.
there. So it's an organization that has a tremendous collection of engineers, and it's like a public transportation conglomerate. You know, I worked in the port department. I started out in the planning department. Worked closely with people in aviation. You know, you have your staff departments, your management and budget people. You have political control and direction from the governors and the board. It really is a very fascinating organization.
Yeah.
And you have very different cultures in each element of the agency. So
Sure.
it's a lot of fun and to watch how we orchestrate a product, and I'm pleased to say that we have some of the best infrastructure in the world because of the people who have worked at the Port Authority.
That's great. So do they oversee the airports?
They oversee the airports and
the trains and subways?
The subways are, except for PATH. They have a subway division that links New York and New Jersey, and that's the Port Authorities. But the general subway system is under the Metropolitan Transit Authority, under New Jersey and under New Jersey Transit. But it's all one big community, and we talk and enjoy working together very closely. Also. The Port Authority is very important as a regional planning organization, and it works very closely with other organizations which are called MPOs in the region. And both New Jersey and New York have recognized that freight is a very important issue, so they all have very competent and dedicated staff to work with in some of the planning issues and just understanding all the challenges that freight delivery presents to an area like New York.
Right.
And I believe the statistic I saw is something like 1.5 million packages are delivered in New York every day. So it's an amazing task that's taking place. There's all this movement going on kind of behind the scenes. or probably less so
You're
if
right.
you're caught up in the congested streets of New York. But it isn't the truck that's really at fault when it comes to some of these delays. It really is a challenge to deliver goods in an urban environment.
Sure. Yeah, just the logistics of everything. And what do you think about what is happening with e-commerce and places like Amazon who are talking about, and I don't know if they even do this yet, delivering with a drone, or now they have locker in like in New York City, not in the Berkshires because we're smaller, but they have they offer a wide variety of ways to sort of to get your goods, to including going someplace to pick it up.
I think what e-commerce is showing us is that the major challenge that's taking place in transportation in the future is what's called the last mile. You know, when you're when you've run this efficient system that's moved goods over tens of thousands of miles, and it has to get down to deliver to the ultimate customer, particularly to their doorstep, and particularly in an urban environment, then it tends to be very challenging. Hence, you see things like that are being discussed and used in some places, such as drones. Amazon has a little video that shows a robot walking down the street taking your goods to a place. And you have this large interstate system to move goods between places, which has been generally a federal responsibility. But the last mile stays in the responsibility of the state and local government. So it's a real challenge now that we're seeing so much more activity taking place in the infrastructure and in the local area. And we've seen, for example, Boston become the most congested city in America, in part because of this commercial activity tied to the difficulties of journey to work. So there is going to be a real challenge in the future as to how we solve the last mile and how we apply the assets we need to take to handle the challenges of the last mile.
Right.
One of the things I had an opportunity to work on was with a good friend of mine was looking at 3D printing. And this is really going to be the transportation miracle, because
so you send, instead of sending the object, you send the blueprint, and then it's printed?
You have a blueprint.
Locally?
And hopefully you collect the stuff that you're going to make it out of. And the blueprint plus the stuff that's local produces the product, rather than having somebody extract the materials from another place, manufacture it, send it through the transportation system, either as a component or a subcomponent, then organize it into a warehouse system, then finally get it to you. You got two moves, you know. You've got the blueprint gets sent. You have the stuff, you make the product.
I'm pretty sure I've read about this in science fiction novels.
Well, it's not science fiction exactly. In fact,
I know, that's what's exciting.
The vast majority, for example, of hearing aids now are 3D printed.
Oh.
And it's getting into other sophisticated products as well. And something like 3D printing can change the whole relationship in society, because rural areas now can produce, say they need housing, and they can produce the housing on the spot rather than having to bring the fabricated materials to the place. They can do it in place. And the Arab world has taken a strong interest in this, and places like Dubai and some of the Emirates are really doing some very interesting experiments of creating entire houses in place. The Chinese have done it as well.
Wow.
So I think that's a big revolution that's taking place. Like any revolution, when is it going to happen? And it's later than people in the industry would expect, but it's going to be a lot sooner than the rest of us expect too.
Sure.
And if you want to have fun with it, I haven't done this yet, but I would suggest we do it. You can go down to the Athenaeum and produce your own little 3D product, because they have a small 3D printer there that's available to
at the
folks.
local library.
Exactly.
That's really exciting. Yeah. Have you done that?
I haven't done it, but I look forward to doing it.
Sure, absolutely. That's really fascinating. There's so many fascinating aspects to this class, and if you're interested in learning more, you can go to our website at berkshireolli.org. That's Berkshire, OLLI.org. You can also give us a call at 413 236-2190, and we can send you a catalog, we can sign you up for this class, we can talk to you about membership, and we also have a, OLLI membership is very affordable, but we also have a scholarship rate, so if finances are a challenge, we don't want to let that keep you from enjoying all the benefits of OLLI, which are, you know, really fascinating educational opportunities, opportunities to meet new friends, and also opportunities to give back. OLLI participates in different volunteer activities. In fact, almost everything OLLI does is organized by volunteers, and all of our classes are taught by wonderful volunteers like Mr. Bob James here, who is teaching a class called Freight is Great, the supply chains that deliver the goods to you. We have just 2 minutes left. What else would you like folks to know about the class?
I'm hoping to make it both interesting and informative, and there's always a challenge there. And this is going to be the first time that I'm teaching this class and working it under the clock. So it's going to be, I think the real interesting part of the class will be how much we get in that stuff I think you need to know and how much is really fun to learn.
Sure.
So I think that's where the challenge is going to be, and I would say that I really hope to get feedback from my students during the presentation so I can make the necessary adjustments. But like, I don't know if you watch these, you know, Netflix shows, and when they first do the introductory story to get you to the characters that you're going to follow for 7 or 8 episodes, they're always a little bit confusing, and it's kind of tedious to work your way through.
Sure.
But I think we're going to have to lay some base information so you can follow the rest of the plot. So, but it's a very interesting industry, and I think people will even enjoy that to see how this complex thing that delivers stuff to our doorstep actually works.
Yeah.
Also, I'd recommend, because I really can't do it during the class, is that if you go on YouTube, George Carlin has a video about stuff and handling and moving your stuff. And this indicates to you on a personal level the challenges that takes place in moving just what you have, and when you go for a vacation, what you take and don't take. And just think about that on an industrialized basis.
Right. We are our own supply chains.
That's right. We have our own supply chains, and he very humorously challenges that. So you've got about 3.5 minutes, and you're looking, you know, for a space between the last show and the evening news. I recommend you see George Carlin's video, and it'll kind of give you a personal sense of the challenge that there is in moving stuff that we're going to discuss in this class.
Wonderful. I'm so jealous. Thank you so much, Bob. It's been great to have you on the show, and I look forward to seeing you at class next week.
My pleasure.
Hello, OLLI, well, hello, OLLI, we're so glad to have